Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Oh, goodness. Did it not freaking take? Hold on just a second. I don't know why it's something is going on with all of my setup. Everything that I'm doing, it just doesn't seem to want to work for some strange reason. Okay, I don't know what's going on here with the what is it saying here? Oh my goodness. This is the web captioning portion that isn't doesn't seem to want to pick up here. Hold on. It's going to it. It's just well, I may have to work without the web captioning going on because of the fact that it doesn't seem to want to work. That my setup, something happened with the with Chrome. I did an update on Chrome because that's how pretty much everything works nowadays. And I did an update on it the other day, and it just freaking died on me. I can't figure out how to log into Restream, which I usually use to stream out to all of my outlets. So if you've made it over here onto Rumble, I appreciate you coming over here because of the fact that things are just not functioning for some dang reason. And I'm also paying attention to my my stream, and it's bouncing all over the place. So like I said, we've got some challenges here. Let me see if I can get this somewhat going again. This is just streaming directly to Rumble is challenging, apparently, at best. I don't know why it's doing this. Give me just a second here. Everything is just crashing completely here. This is not good. Let me see. What is... Oh, well, okay. Looks like that might have done something for it. Let me see if that changes things and makes it so that it's a little more... Oh, no. Yeah, it just does not want to stream normal. So it looks like I'm going to be bouncing all over the place. This is just a mess. Just a complete mess. Hopefully we'll be able to work through it here, quality wise and everything else. But all right. Wow, what a mess. Okay, so it's extremely hot here in the studio too. So it's not just me sweating because of the issues that we're having that I'm having here. I'm dropping frames, which is really the sad part about this. Let's see if I can. I'm trying to get it back to where it was before. Let's see if I can do it here. I'm going to try one more lower setting and see if this works. And hopefully it'll kind of clean up some of this. I can't do those, so that's all right. So that's the best I can do right now. We'll see if that actually helps and starts lowering things down and making things a little less choppy for you folks. Oh my gosh, this is just horrible. All right. So, okay. So here we go. Not the greatest thing for a premiere of a special event thing. I told you I was going to do it, and I went ahead and tried to get some things put together for the special event, the special premiere tonight. And we'll have to see. It looks like things are kind of stabilizing maybe a little bit here. No, still happening. And this is because it honestly is because of the fact that I cannot use Restream. I'm telling you that right now. So I apologize for the quality of the video and everything that's going. It honestly is because of Restream being out that I can't seem to do this. But we'll push forward. There's nothing more I can do about it at this point. All right. So tonight I am premiering the 1776, the James and Pepper 1776 bourbon. This is from, let's see, it's a straight bourbon whiskey. It does come from Kentucky, I believe. And, let's just see what it says back here. Yeah, it was established in 1780 during the American Revolution, which of course made me, obviously 1776 made me think of it. And yeah, so anyway, the brand was fondly called Old 1776 by the scion, the James E. Pepper. And this fine whiskey is hard bottled at the historic Pepper Distillery in Lexington, Kentucky. And I guess you can learn more at jamesepepper.com. That's jamesepepper.com. jamesepepper.com if you want to learn a little bit more about that whiskey. But that's what I've got in my glass for tonight. And it's got a little bit more of a heavier taste than I normally do, but yeah. So anyway, all right, looks like some people are getting out and they're popping in on the Rumble from my other locations, and I do appreciate you guys coming in and joining in the party. I apologize for the technical difficulties. It has been kind of challenging here. Hopefully things will settle out a little bit. But do not be surprised if you see some bouncing here and there. I'm trying to keep it as low keyed as possible and doing the best I can with it. But it is apparently having some challenges here. So bear with me, please bear with me. All right. So, tonight, of course, it is, Whiskey Wednesday. Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And, yep, today is Whiskey Wednesday. And of course, on Whiskey Wednesday, tonight's, sponsor, I guess is the best way for me to say it, is True Grit Roots Network. And let me tell you a little bit about them. TGRN champions independent artists while paying respects to the pioneers who shaped modern roots music, featuring outlaw, country, blues, and rock with a unique twist of urban that is carefully selected and purposely put together. We are the radio highway that connects the back roads, highways, and city streets to your favorite dance hall, roadhouse, and juke joint. TGRN provides original exclusive programming and interviews that are produced and hosted by our own team of DJs, hosts, and personalities. Find us on the web at tgrn.net to download our app in the App Store and from Google Play. Alternatively, you can find us in the Live 365 catalog of internet digital radio stations and through the Live 365 app as well. You can also play our station on Amazon Alexa by saying play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Be sure to use the word from in the command play True Grit Roots Network from Live 365. Live 365 is now on Roku, so you can play it through your TV. That is fantastic. Breaking boundaries for authentic roots radio. True Grit Roots Network, tgrn.net, Austin, Texas. And of course, I am a partial owner in that venture. All right. So tonight, before I get to the premiere of the long-awaited segment of Constitution Quarter, let me go ahead and kind of tell you a little bit about my last weekend. So last weekend, on Sunday, I had the opportunity to go and watch my nephew graduate from the local college here. And as per usual, as we do with many colleges, I'm not going to say all of them, but many colleges, is B. Patrick says that you can't get Alexa to play it, so you have to say it really, really slow. I'm going to tell you that much. So yeah, you can try it. I mean, just remember to use the word from and then emphasize the Live 365 part of it. But anyway, thank you for giving it a try, though. I do appreciate it. I know sometimes it's a pain in the ass for me to get in, but anyway. All right. So the college that I went to, of course, it's very liberal or leftist, I guess you could say. And as typical, the valedictorian came up and started saying a bunch of things that, honestly, they probably shouldn't necessarily have. But the one thing that struck me was the concept that, of course, they tried to push, which was the fact that, of course, this country is and has been built on African Americans' backs. And to my son's credit, who was with me, to my son's credit, it was really, really, well, it kind of galled him a little bit. And the reason being, of course, is because anyone who really studies history knows that although I don't want to downplay the contributions that the slave community did for this country, but there were a lot of other groups that were also in that same kind of scenario. For an example, you had, the Irish who came over here originally were also part of slaves and indentured servants. And then you also had the Chinese later on who came over from the east and built our railroads off into the west. And so there is a sense of entitlement when you go and state for whatever record that one group is more responsible than another for making this country. That isn't the case. This country was founded on principles that have been essentially ingrained within the psyche of the American people. And it all started with this concept of trying to get away from oppression and tyranny. And so to sit here and to elevate any one particular group into the formation of this great country, because, and as I'm being hit, obviously, by everybody in the chat here talking about Italians, the Germans, the Irish worked the railroads also, to uphold one group of individuals or one ethnic group of individuals over the rest is disingenuous at best. And to say that this country, which was founded upon a multitude of people coming from all different walks of life, all different places, in order to create essentially a melting pot here in the United States, all with the dream of freedom and opportunity, is just, it's just amazing to me that somebody could sit there and say that this country was actually built on one ethnic group. And considering the fact that that one ethnic group was essentially freed in 1865, and then, of course, was on a course, you can look at history, but they were on course to be one of the most prominent and top groups of individuals, just like the Asians are today. But, one of the most prominent groups of individuals and the fastest growing groups of individuals up until the civil rights movement in the 1960s. So to sit here and push that one particular group is more important than another, which is typical of a leftist, is, again, disingenuous to the rest of the groups of individuals who came over here, who were oppressed, who were slaves, who were indentured servants, who were poor and, had to fight and scratch and scrabble and do all kinds of things, sometimes just to survive, to get here, to be able to come to the land of opportunity, to be able to expand upon their gifts and their capabilities, but to have the opportunity to do so rather than be oppressed by a totalitarian government or something like that is ridiculous to me. And what's even worse is to sit here and to perpetuate that myth means that your intelligence level and understanding of U.S. history is lacking. Highly, highly lacking. And to say that you're a valedictorian and say something like that on stage seriously makes me question your education and the school's ability to instruct. Anyway, so that was what I ran across on Sunday, and of course, had to bite my tongue. I was in the den of the wolves, being a lion, of course, but being a den in the wolves, and I really wasn't looking forward to starting that kind of fight. But anyway. All right. So let's get on with some of the show here. Let's get on with the rest of the show. So, whoops. That lit off and it wasn't supposed to. It means I didn't turn it off on Saturday. Like I said, everything is just peachy keen here on the show. Things are not working out like they're supposed to. But anyway, so and also my work phone seems to be blowing up. Speaking of work, like I told you on Saturday when I popped up and said that I was probably not going to be streaming on last Saturday, and then it got postponed. Well, back on for this Saturday. So this Saturday, I will not be streaming on this Saturday. So once again, I'm not going to be streaming on this Saturday. And so just so you're aware, we're back into that same thing. It's a work thing. I kind of explained it in the last episode. I'm not going to go through it again, but this Saturday I will not be working or not be streaming. Okay. All right. Enough about that. Okay. So now, speaking of people out of work, sort of, I don't know if you guys caught this, but Twitter allowed Tucker Carlson to broadcast his first episode being away from Fox News. And let me go ahead and bring that up here. Let's get this up. All right. So Tucker Carlson released his first episode of the Twitter show. Now, here's the thing: is Tucker on Twitter is the name of the show, and the thing about it is that he only streamed for maybe 11 minutes. I think the episode was like 11 minutes long. I don't recall specifically, but I think that was it. And what the left has been yelling and complaining about was the fact that he didn't have fancy stuff like what they call in the biz, they call the stingers, which are like the transitions. And he had, his background wasn't all that fancy. It was just wherever he was, kind of blurred. You can see in the photo. And so they picked on the specific on the specific look of it, but they totally glossed over the context. And yeah, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, he once again he took a shot at the whole dam, which pretty much anybody on the right has been talking about the dam in Ukraine that got blown up and started flooding all over the place. And a lot of people think that, he essentially, a lot of people think that the Russians did it, which doesn't make any sense. A lot of people think the Ukrainians did it, which makes a lot more sense because the dam was actually in a Russian area, Russian-controlled area near Crimea. But the thing about it is that his first episode, I think I've been hearing numbers like 40 million views and stuff. So Tucker Carlson, who puts out an 11-minute video on Twitter, which is not your typical platform, and they went ahead and he got more views than like CNN has had in a very long time, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody noticed, but CNN's CEO got ousted this morning, more than likely due to the fact that network is just dying. I mean, it's just completely dying. I don't even know why anybody would like watch them anymore. But, hey, I guess it's to each his own, I suppose. So anyway, I did want to bring that out because obviously, talking about Twitter or talking about Tucker and Tucker on Twitter is all the rage today. And so if you get the opportunity to head on over to Twitter, whether you have an account or not, I think it might be publicly available, but I'm not 100% certain, but you can give it a try. You can go over on episode 1 and see that video of Tucker on Twitter. And, yeah, so he's making his waves again. I'm telling you, this guy, he's going to do something great whenever he finally does. I personally think he ought to come to Rumble. But that's just me is to try it. But anyway, so I want to, I guess it's also, according to Outlaw Dogs, it's also on Facebook making the rounds, which is cool. So thank you all for those of you who are normally over on Facebook coming on over to Rumble. I do appreciate that. Like I said earlier in the broadcast, something happened with Restream. For whatever reason, something changed in my browser and it won't allow the CAPTCHA to pop up. And so because it doesn't allow the CAPTCHA to pop up, I can't log in. I'm going to have to try and figure that out. Maybe reboot the computer or something. I don't know. Maybe something didn't take. But anyway. All right. So let's move on to our next topic. Hey, did you guys notice that some major piece came out in the news here about January 6th? And yeah, so something came out in January 6th on the January 6th footage. They finally pulled this out, and let me go ahead and pull it up here. But take a look at this video that's playing right above me. This is from Just the News. They released this footage. You know how they were talking about how the doors were, magnetically sealed and locked and nobody let anyone in and so on and so forth? Well, guess what? They actually did. This footage is showing that up to 300 people came in, and apparently these are the Upper West Terrace doors. And apparently up to 300 people were able to come in. And actually the Capitol Police finally got to that door when it was open. It's open, literally open. And they finally got there and kind of slowed down the flow, but didn't necessarily stop them. And they didn't block the entrance, and they kind of like backed off, and people were coming in and so on and so forth. You know, again, I'm just going to say this whole thing on January 6th stinks to high heaven. And it just makes me wonder if, I mean, well, anyone can actually wonder about this. We all know it was more than likely a setup, or at least just a complete and utter failure of the Capitol Police to protect the building. But the reality of it is that this particular video showing this, it confirms concerns that were first raised by Senator Ron Johnson in Wisconsin 2 years ago. And basically what it says is that they freaking let it go. I mean, it just dropped. And, yeah, I guess it was an emergency exit only in the video. And then it also says to push until the alarm sounds, and then the doors will unlock after 10 seconds. And they popped it open. And once it was open, that was it. And then according to the article here, it talks about after one person's exits, the doors appear to open from the inside as 309 individuals pass through it over a period of less than 20 minutes from the outside. Capitol Police officers who didn't have riot gear or helmets eventually made their way to the unlocked Upper West Terrace doors, but did not block the entrance, and more rioters continued to flow into the building, according to the footage that was reviewed by Just the News and released for publication by House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The video footage of other locations of the Capitol that day also show officers attempting to physically block entrances to stop rioters from coming into the building, with rioters at sometimes striking the officers or spraying them with pepper spray. Now, the Capitol Police did not respond to any request from Just the News seeking comment, and its official active after-action report barely mentions the episode, simply noting that at 2:34 p.m., the Upper West Terrace is breached. Apparently, it's located, that particular entrance is located between the House and Senate sides of the building and has been a major focus of many trespassing prosecutions by the U.S. Justice Department. So anyway, yeah, this is one of those things where it's rough to really look at this and try to figure out, whether or not things are, going the way that you think they're supposed to. And I mean, honestly, these people that are coming in here that are trespassing, they don't know any different. They don't see any signs. They just walk in. I mean, they probably thought the doors were open and letting everybody in. But anyway, so it's just an interesting development. And I think that, some of the what do you call it? The, trials that have been going on and the convictions now may have some way of like overriding or doing something, where they can maybe fix or, have them overturned or whatever, in that kind of thing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to say the least. Okay. So, all right, let's see okay. Now let's go back here. So that's, just interesting. And again, it's just going to have to keep going. We're going to have to keep looking at that and watching that. All right. Well, one of the things that Biden has been talking about, is the fact that he is swearing up and down that he has this wonderful pathway and things that he's doing, things like, saving drug prices and bringing them down to like $35 and all of these things. Well, that may not actually be happening for much longer. Check this out from the Epoch Times. Drug company Merck sues the Biden administration over the sham drug price negotiation program. So, American company apparently filed a lawsuit against the U.S. government on June 6th, saying that Medicare's new program established under the Inflation Reduction Act, which of course we all know is not the Inflation Reduction Act, it's actually the Inflation Production Act, I guess, is a sham that violates the First and Fifth Amendments to the United States Constitution. President Joe Biden signed the IRA into law in August of 2022, allowing Medicare to directly negotiate pricing for certain expensive drugs. The lawsuit, filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, however, argues that the new program is a sham that grants the Department of Health and Human Services too much power to impose its preferred price. Well, you know, I've kind of mentioned it a couple of times on this program where Biden is looking to be the most overturned president in terms of being overturned by the courts for all of his executive orders and everything else, which, by the way, he popped out on Twitter here not too long ago talking about the student loan forgiveness thing, which, again, SCOTUS hasn't ruled on it yet, but we expect that we're probably going to hear it in the next couple of, by the end of the month, because there's several opinions that are supposed to be kicked out before the Supreme Court adjourns for this session. But anyway, they claim, let's see, where is it? The price. So the court filing reads that it involves neither genuine negotiations nor real agreements. Rather, once HHS unilaterally selects a drug for inclusion into its program, its manufacturer is compelled to sign an agreement promising to sell the drug to Medicare beneficiaries at whatever fair price the agency dictates, the court filing reads. The IRA mandates that the United States government negotiate prices for specific prescription drugs beginning in 2026 as part of the drug price negotiation program for Medicare. Any drug maker that fails to comply with the negotiation requirements is subject to excise taxes and civil penalties. Through these negotiations, the Biden administration has promised to save $25 billion annually by 2031. Okay, so here's the deal. This is part of where we get into these situations where Congress and the United States government has overstepped its bounds. Way overstepped its bounds. Because of the fact that the government shouldn't be allowed to mandate this at all. They shouldn't be allowed to get involved with pricing other than potentially pushing things like being able to influence purchasing power based off of the sheer amount that they would be buying. But that would be typical of like your standard capitalist society. It basically would mean that, hey, I'm buying these in bulk. You know, I should be able to negotiate a lower price. But that doesn't necessarily mean, of course, that that price is going to be the same across the board for everybody else. And so what it sounds like this is actually doing based on this article is that the IRA is essentially saying, hey, we as the government are just going to pick how much we're going to pay. And when we do that pick, it's basically going to be your drug prices essentially forever. So that's what you're going to do. Well, honestly, yeah, this is the first time that a drug maker is trying to challenge the law. So I'm imagining that this might come into it's probably going to go to SCOTUS, honestly, and it's probably going to get overturned, just like so many other things that Biden has done. Speaking of pricing and inflation, well, obviously, as I've been saying on this program, inflation still looms for Biden, despite the progress that he's been making, supposedly progress. His progress is essentially that, hey, it's lower than it was 6 months ago, but it's still, higher than it ever has been for quite so many years. So anyway, and that's what this article in the Washington Examiner talks about, where he's been boasting about falling inflation. And he doesn't believe me that his intern does it on Twitter all day long, twice on Sundays, and tries to make people think that things are getting better. But just days after the Bureau of Economic Analysis announced that the Federal Reserve's preferred inflation gauge rose in April. More Americans are working today than ever in the history, and inflation has dropped 10 straight months in a row, the president claimed. Well, yeah, it may have dropped 10 straight months in a row, but it's still higher than what it was. And most experts, according to the piece here, most experts predicted that would, in fact, be the case, with the annual personal consumption expenditures price index expected to fall to 3.9%. But instead, the Biden administration reported on May 26th that the index rose 0.2 of a point from 4.2 to 4.4 rather than falling down to that 3.9. While it's only a modest increase and far below the 9.1 peak inflation that reached last summer, it's still more than double the Fed's target rate of 2%. So again, this is, Biden keeps doing this. He keeps going on a freaking victory lap because he thinks that people can't remember that far back, which realistically, I kind of agree with him. I mean, maybe that's a strategy for him. But, some people don't remember when Biden was caught sending illegals all over the country. And now there's, I think Texas is suing. Some AG in Texas has filed a lawsuit or is getting ready to file a lawsuit against Ron DeSantis for sending illegals from Florida to California, talking about something about kidnapping and trafficking charges or something. I mean, come on, folks. Biden's been doing that since the beginning. But anyway, the conservatives who have hammered Biden for nearly 2 years over rising prices say it's a sign that he still doesn't have the issue under control. I would tend to agree with him. Alfredo Ortiz, president and CEO of Job Creators Network, says real wages declined for the 26th consecutive month as Bidenflation continues to outpace average wage growth. Despite Biden's claim to the contrary, the Fed's favorite indicator shows that inflation is accelerating once again. Now, I know you guys remember I did talk about this here not too long ago, where real wages were just adjusted by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics to be at a negative 4.7 or maybe 4.9%. So we've actually lost 5% in this. So anyway, the point being is that again, you cannot believe anything that this Biden guy is putting out and talking about. You cannot believe anything that he is saying because he is just lying through his teeth and trying to make things look good. And we all know by going out and buying and purchasing products that we know how inflation is affecting people. And speaking of inflation and prices, there's a bunch of socialists, Elizabeth Warren in particular, but Bernie Sanders and even Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, which she has a fantastic parody account. It's not hers, but there is a fantastic parody account on Twitter that is just freaking hilarious. I love it to death for her. But, all these socialists are kicking out this conspiracy theory Okay. This conspiracy theory that the prices and the price hikes are due to the fact that the companies that are doing them have found a way to make everyone think that they are raking in all kinds of profits. And this piece in Based Politics, basedpolitics.com, talks about the legacy media keep parroting a socialist conspiracy theory. And here's the theory. Okay. The theory basically is that the Federal Reserve, by printing trillions of dollars and Congress going on an unprecedented stimulus binge, did not, I say it again, did not cause inflation. That the real cause of inflation was corporate greed, i.e., or for example, monopolistic companies using the pandemic as cover to jack up prices and maximize their profits. Now, this, of course, for any serious economist or serious follower of Econ 101 understands that this doesn't make any sense because of the fact that corporations are always greedy. I mean, why would you not want to maximize your profits? There is absolutely no explainable reason as to why you would not want to maximize your profits. But there's this thing called the law of supply and demand that usually will stem how much you charge for a particular widget, whatever that widget is, whatever that thing is. Because eventually you're going to end up pricing yourself out of the market because your competitors, ideally, will be coming in underneath you. And so this is how the capitalist system is supposed to check and balance itself. Okay. But that being said, that they always want to maximize their profits, and looking at historical data, it shows that all of a sudden that didn't suddenly change in 2020. So in other words, prices didn't like all of a sudden change just because of the fact that we're dealing with higher inflation. They didn't like all of a sudden changes. So some prices obviously rose for some goods more than other goods were. And we're supposed to think that these corporations are going to be able to get, more profits and everything. Sorry, I'm seeing a little bit in the chat here. Something caught my eye. But anyway, so we're supposed to believe that some corporations are able to price gouge and other corporations can't. I mean, it just doesn't seem to make any sense. And this is part of the reason why serious economists kick out and reject that theory completely. Okay. So a January article, this is a survey of top economists, found that, and this is weighted for confidence, that 80% reject the notion that greedy corporations are jacking up prices is a significant factor behind today's higher U.S. inflation. Only 10% agreed that it was. And economists are really kind of fickle. I'll tell you, you want to talk economy? Look, just listen to Thomas Sowell. Listen to, there's another guy, and I can't think of his name right now off the top of my head. I can picture him in my head, but I can't think of his name. But anyway, look at Thomas Sowell. Read some of Thomas Sowell's stuff. And that is literally where, Thomas Sowell, for those that don't know, used to be a Marxist. And when asked about that, he has literally said, well, I learned facts and I started looking at facts. And so the thing about it is that, people don't understand basic Econ 101. When costs rise, then prices rise, because realistically, if I am a corporation and I can sell my widget at, let's say, $100 during normal times, and then all of a sudden my costs, let's say my costs on something is like $50, just to make the math real easy for leftists out there. So my cost on something is $50, okay, and I can sell it for $100. That means for every widget that I sell, I get $50 in what's called gross profit, okay? You got to take out taxes and things like that off of that, but just to make this simple, okay, I'm getting $50 in gross profit. Well, all of a sudden, because of Joe Biden's policies and everything else, my cost raised from $50 to $75. Well, now I'm making only $25 if I keep my if I keep my price at $100. But the reality of it is that what I would probably do is I want to keep my profit level at $50. So I'll start selling things off at $125 so that I can keep that $50. Okay. So, I mean, again, this is just keeping it very, very simple, very simplistic for you leftists out there. That, you know, again, these are not people that they want to maximize their profits, but they also realize that if they price themselves out of the market, they're going to lose sales. And that's really where the problem comes in. Okay. So anyway, yeah, it's almost always about supply and demand. Now, if you take a look at, here's a Brad Palumbo put this out. He's one of the ones that did this piece. But if you look at this graph, and I'll kind of read it a little bit here. But if you look, it's all of a sudden, you know, egg prices are going along. They're kind of stable. They raise and lower, so on and so forth. But then all of a sudden they go up a little bit. It's like they discovered greed. You know, if you follow the socialist idea that greed is what's causing all of this. Well, then they go and all of a sudden, you know, a little bit later in like 2016, the prices start falling and they actually get lower than what they were prior to 2016. You know, from 2 years prior, 2014, 2015, it gets lower. And then it raises up in 2018. They rediscover the greed, and then all of a sudden it drops back down and gets down to roughly about the same level from 2018, 2019 into 2020. There's a spike in 2020, and then all of a sudden it drops back down again, kind of gets more toward the average. And then here we get close to 2022, and all of a sudden you get this huge spike where egg prices soar to over $5, you know, for a carton of eggs. Well, it has nothing to do with greed. It has everything to do with the fact that, well, there's a couple of factors in terms of egg prices directly. There was a bunch of chickens that got destroyed because of little mishaps and fires. I think there was one chicken farm, if I recall correctly, there was one chicken farm that got fires. And then, of course, you have the whole avian flu that takes over and destroys, you know, takes out a whole bunch of chickens. Yeah, it's in chickens, you know, chickens not laying, chickens. I mean, there could be all kinds of environmental factors that go into the factor where there is less of a supply and more of a demand. Well, now all of a sudden your prices start going up. And again, this is just straight Econ 101. And so the people who believe in this, they never factor in any of these other kinds of things that factor in on this stuff. Inflation, you know, lack of supply, greater demand, things like that. They don't factor any of this stuff in because, to be completely honest, they probably failed Econ 101, which is part of the reason why they believe that big corporations are doing nothing but being greedy out of all of this. Okay. So if you see that, then keep in mind that that's again, it's no serious economist, kind of like the whole trickle down economics thing that they try and tout, how, you know, the rich are supposed to, money is supposed to trickle down. Thomas Sowell was asked about that on a video, and I've referred back to it several times. But that video, he basically says, I've never heard a serious economist who has ever been able to tell me where that term came from. You know, and of course it was in reference to Obama talking about trickle down economics. And he's like, where did it come from? Who said it? Who was the original person that said it? And they didn't. There's nobody excuse me, there's nobody that that can find it. He actually challenged people on social media, said, "Hey, if you can find me the original person, I'll give you," I think it was $100 or $1,000 or something like that. And nobody ever took him up on it because they can't find it, but it's consistently touted. It's consistently touted in the left-wing media. Okay. Consistently touted in the left-wing media. Well, here's a positive. I mean, we already know about things like, know about things like the ban of Bud Light, the subsequent loss of something like $10 or $11 billion by Target because of all of these things. Well, you remember how I've been talking about the parallel economy and how, you have places like Rumble that's kicked off in direct competition to YouTube. Okay, I got to get this only because it showed up. All right, Music Man hat update, please. So just to catch everybody up who may be new to the program, this hat right here, everybody seems to want. Gee, I wonder why. The update is at this point, I still am working on acquiring the hat. Okay. And I promise I'm working on getting it. As soon as I can get it, I will have more information for you. But as of right now, I do not have the hats in hand as of yet. Okay. So there you go. There's the hat update. I'm sorry. Not a lot of information there, Music Man, but that's pretty much all I can tell you at this point. Okay. So speaking of buying things, there's an article in the Epic Times, which I thought was very interesting here. And, this is from a Jonathan Isaacs, who is #1 of the Orlando Magic. And, he basically said that and here in the photo, you can see he's standing while the others are kneeling for Black Lives Matter. But, he pretty much says that we don't have to hide. And this is the title. We don't have to hide in the rise of conservative brands. We've got to make our parallel economy. We really do. And there are now a rise of conservative values, conservative brands. Multiple brands are touting conservative values. They've been launching, gaining market share amid the current economic climate where people are pretty much tired of all of this stuff. Okay. And so Jonathan Isaac announced here on June 2nd his Unite Us brand, or Unite Us apparel brand. And it's pitched as an alternative to retail brands that are going woke. Unite Us is scheduled to launch in August. And here's the quote that Isaac told PragerU's Amala, Ekpanubi. Anyway, for the documentary Unwoke Inc., he says, Unite Us is a sports and apparel company, and the basis of it, for me, is freedom. You can have companies that are in the field who have made a conscious decision to either attack or undermine Christian values, conservative values, and things like that. And I think they have the free choice to do so, as much as I disagree. But I also feel that we have the freedom to create what we want to create. And he said that his Unite Us brand is aimed at giving parents who want to buy their kids sneakers and clothes the option to give their money to a company that they know is going to work toward bolstering their values. He says, we can be proud of what we believe in. We don't have to hide or be ashamed of it. As the day continues to get darker and darker and crazier, you stand up for what you believe in. It's only going to get harder, but it's only going to become more and more necessary. So, yeah. So anyway, there's a bunch of them out here. In fact, I think it's called Monmouth something or other. And they have a kind of a marketplace where I guess if you buy into it, you can if you buy a membership, you can get special discounts at these places. But the listing of all the places that are a part of this conservative co-op actually is on their website, and so you can go through and peruse the listings, and then of course go to those particular locations to get to basically patron places that uphold your conservative values. And I'm kind of hoping that as time goes and this channel grows, that I will be able to get a hold of some of those companies and be able to get some sponsors from those companies. Yes, Buddy Weiser, thank you. It is Mammoth Nation, MAMMOTH Nation, NATION, Mammoth Nation. And I get emails from them. I haven't become a member, but I've gotten emails from them. And yeah, so anyway, the point is we have really got to start pushing for a parallel economy. We've got to quit giving these companies our money if we can. And yeah, so yeah. Anyway, all right. So I don't know if anybody's noticed, but there was an interview that was done by, I believe it's Sky News out in Australia. I can't see. Yes. So Sky News Australia, so this is really bad. We as Americans have to go to outside sources to get true, and factual information. But apparently there was a interview, that was done by a gentleman by the name of, and I'm trying to find it in here, trying to find the name. He's a former Trump White House aide named Garrett Ziegler, and he apparently obtained a copy of the Hunter Biden laptop and is now speaking out and publishing its contents. A few days ago, a nonprofit that he founded called Marco Polo published over 10,000 photos from the laptop on the site BidenLaptopMedia.com. Now, I am not going to go there because I really don't want to go and take a look at all the naked photos and stuff, which apparently are blurred out in certain places. But I still don't. That's just not something that I want to look at. But apparently, he did an interview. That gentleman did an interview with Sky News Australia, and that interview is roughly 22 minutes long. And he talks about all of the things that he found as part of the information that is on the laptop. Again, just kind of confirming what most of us already know, that things like Tony Bobulinski was a part of this scheme, that, Tony outed Joe Biden as the quote unquote big guy and got his 10% and all of those things. And so, yeah, it's just one of those things that you may want to search it up. It is on their YouTube channel, for Sky News Australia, but it's pretty sad that we have to actually go to outside sources like that and not our internal American sources for real, factual news. Speaking of real and factual news, New York City continues its downward spiral. And let me explain why. Well, apparently they put in a safe drug vending machine. A drug vending machine. Yeah. So apparently they put it in, and as soon as it was put in, the crack pipes that they had in it, residents apparently ransacked the first stash within 24 hours. Oh, let me show you this. So this is from dailymail.com. Well, apparently because it got ransacked within the first 24 hours of all the crack pipes, they decided to replace it or replenish it with Narcan, fentanyl strips, and condoms instead of the crack pipes. But here's a photo. You can see it up here of the completely empty machine. So it's all free. Apparently what you can do is you can go in and just type in a proper zip code, and it will dispense whatever it is that you're asking for. So it was installed on Monday and then was empty by Tuesday morning. And now they have things like safer smoking kits and things like that. So, you know, again, this is just typical liberals typical leftists doing typical leftist stuff, thinking that if you enable the addict, that the addict is going to be satisfied. And then, you know, in their particular case, they're talking about crime going down or things like that. This is nuts. Yeah, this is just crazy. So anyway, yeah, that really went well. Went well for them. And speaking about going really well, apparently Seattle City Council has decided that drug use in public on the streets is no longer illegal. Yeah, that's going to bring all those tourists back, guys. Anyway, apparently out here at New York City, Elan Kwashi, who is the opioid overdose program director at Services for the Underserved, says, we're going to have to restock this machine every day, probably multiple times a day. Oh shit, folks. I'm sorry. That's just, I can't understand how these people really think. And speaking about not thinking, apparently another corporation has decided to leave San Francisco. As you know, from the last time that I talked, there were some major not grocery stores, but major chains, major department store chains that are leaving San Francisco. There's 2 or 3 of them. But now apparently the owner of the city's largest hotel, the Hilton San Francisco Union Square, and of course the owner of its 4th largest, Park 55, will cease payments on $725 million worth of loans and enter foreclosure on the hotels because the city is facing, and I quote, major challenges. Thomas J. Baltimore Jr., who is the CEO of Park Hotels and Resorts, which owns those 2 hotels, said the decision was very difficult but necessary because of concerns over street conditions, office vacancies, and reduced conventions. Now more than ever, we believe San Francisco's path to recovery remains clouded and elongated by major challenges, both old and new. Old Navy last week said that it will close its flagship store. Whole Foods and Nordstrom have already shuttered business in the city due to safety concerns. And the Nordstrom leaving the city is costing the city itself 380 jobs. So the downtown area has lost half its businesses since the start of the pandemic. So here you go. Yeah, they're taking off and leaving. All right. Looks like I've got just a little bit of time left, so I'm going to try and do this here. So let's see. So tonight, here it is. I premiere my newest segment called Constitution Quarter. And of course, the Constitution Quarter is going to be 15 minutes of constitutional information surrounding the Constitution, specifically about the Constitution, or maybe specifically about some other things that are going on with the Constitution. I also have set up a channel on Rumble. If you go to Constitution Quarter, so if you head off to Rumble and search up Constitution Quarter, and you'll be able to get these little 15-minute snippets. I'll be posting them after I do them. Obviously, I'll do them live, but I'll be posting them for referral later up on Rumble. This is a Rumble exclusive. for the Constitution Quarter, but this is another channel that I deal with. And so this, you will see the Constitution Quarter start to get posted this week. Okay. So tonight's Constitution Quarter, we are going to talk about the development of the Constitution. Got to start right where it starts. Did you know, and most people may not, but did you know that the United States of America, the Constitution is not our first founding document? Okay. The Constitution is not our first founding document. In fact, at the Second Constitutional Congress, okay, where the Declaration of Independence was commissioned and written, the Articles of Confederation were also commissioned at the Second Constitutional Congress. And the second, sorry, not constitutional. Oh shoot. Now I forgot what it's called. Give me just a second. It was the Second Continental. That's it, not Constitution. Sorry. The Second Continental Congress, which put out a commission. They did two commissions there. The first one was to commission the Declaration of Independence, of which they put together a committee, and that committee consisted of people like Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and some others. And also, by the way, too, just in case you don't know, the Declaration of Independence actually wasn't the first letter that was composed and penned, but it was the one that was finally accepted. And I may go into that one time during the Constitution Quarter. But at the Second Continental Congress, they also put together a committee for the Articles of Confederation. Okay. And the Articles of Confederation were essentially in the mindset of the framers were to kind of get a loose or some kind of binding contract for the colonies. And there's, you know, it was very interesting to see. It was sort of put together on the rush, I guess I could say. You know, looking back on it, we could say that it was sort of put together in a rush because of the reason that they wanted to put it. They wanted to put together a document that sort of bound the colonies together in a loose fashion. And so what they did is they put together this Articles of Confederation. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to find the text here. Here we go. So they put together the Articles of Confederation. They started it in the early portion, like I said, before the Declaration of Independence that was put out, but it actually didn't get ratified until 1781. And it was accepted by the Congress, the newly formed Congress, on November 15th, 1777. And then it was put out to the states, or the 13 colonies at that point. And they, at that time, the way that the Articles of Confederation read is that all, not 2/3 like we have today, but all of the states, the 13 colonies, had to ratify it. So that was part of the reason why it didn't actually get ratified until 1781, because Massachusetts was the last one to finally agree to it. Okay. There were many things that happened that were put into the Articles of Confederation that actually carried over into the Constitution, the final Constitution of the United States that we put together. But unfortunately, it had a bunch of weaknesses. For an example, one of the biggest weaknesses that was there is that the states did not want to have a federal government or an overarching government. And so they were very, very particular. This is part of the reason why we talk about federalism, but they were very particular about the idea of a faraway government, in this case, the federal government, or the Articles of Confederation government, overlording state sovereignty. And so state sovereignty was front and center in the Articles of Confederation. So let me show you a little bit of the text of the Articles of Confederation here. So obviously the first thing, and this is where the United States of America came from, the first article in the Articles of Confederation is that we will be called the United States of America. And then the second one is the second article. And by the way, there's only 13 of them as a part of the Articles of Confederation. But the second article states that each state retains its sovereignty, freedom, and independence, and every power, jurisdiction, and right, which is not by this confederation expressly delegated to the United States in Congress assembled. And that phrasing actually kind of sounds a little familiar, and I'll tell you why. It's because it is that article, Article 2 in the Articles of Confederation, that spurred the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, which is one of my favorites. Anyway, Article 3, you can hear where it says, the states hereby severally enter into a firm league of friendship with each other for their common defense, security of their liberties, and their mutual and general welfare, binding themselves to assist each other against all force offered to or attacks made upon them or any of them on account of religion, sovereignty, trade, or any other pretense whatsoever. You can kind of see a little bit of where this stuff is kind of, spurring on the Constitution, some of the principles that were involved here. Okay. And then, of course, it talks about in Article 4, the better to secure and perpetuate mutual friendship and intercourse among the people of different states in this union, the free inhabitants of each of these states, paupers, vagabonds, and fugitives from justice excepted, shall be entitled to all privileges and immunities of the free citizens of several states and the people of each state, so on and so forth. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. You can look it up online. But the point here is that the Articles of Confederation were the initial document. And this was drafted, by the way, during the American Revolutionary War. Because obviously the Declaration of Independence was committed at the same time. And so they went ahead and, both of these documents, both the Articles of Confederation and the Declaration of Independence, were essentially committed or put into committees by the Second Continental Congress. Now, there were some serious flaws in the Articles of Confederation. One, and the biggest one actually, which caused it to get essentially thrown out and rewritten into the United States Constitution, was because of the fact that there was no teeth in the Articles of Confederation when it came to things like being able to levy taxes, to be able to pay off war debts. What ended up happening is, because of the Articles of Confederation focused solely on the sovereignty of each one of the states, the Continental Congress, or the Congress, couldn't require or levy the amount of money that was needed from the states in order to pay back the war debts. And so this is probably the first and the biggest one out of the Articles of Confederation. But also at the same time, even though Congress was able to negotiate foreign treaties and things like that, even though Congress was given that power by the Articles of Confederation, it didn't make it so that the Congress could actually approve of it. What ended up happening is that Congress could negotiate a treaty with a foreign power, but then that same treaty would have to be signed and agreed to by all 13 colonies, or in this case, 13 states. And so it really hampered Congress's ability to do and get and take care of foreign communications and foreign treaties and to work with our foreign folks. But then you also have the other part of this too, is that Congress did not have the power to negotiate and oversee interstate trade, not just foreign trade and treaties, but also they didn't have the power to regulate interstate commerce. And so what ended up happening is you had several of the states that were, let's say, taking a few extra liberties for the other states and things like that. And because of the fact that Congress literally didn't have money, they needed roughly about $10 million to cover the war costs, and they only got maybe 1/10 of that from the states, because the states could just decide, yeah, you're asking us for, let's say, $1 million. Yeah, we're only going to give you 100,000, if that. And that was because the Articles of Confederation did not have enough teeth in them. The Articles of Confederation also did not separate the powers like what we have today in the Constitution. The Constitution, which is part of the reason why part of the preamble of the Constitution states, in order to form a more perfect union. Now, a lot of people wonder where that phrase came from. Well, it came from the fact that the Articles of Confederation actually crashed and burned. In the Continental Congress that was brought, or the Constitutional Convention that was brought together in 1787. That the whole purpose of that was to rewrite and approve the Articles of Confederation. And so the Articles of Confederation actually ended up getting thrown out, and they rewrote it and turned it into the United States Constitution. So if somebody sits there and tells you that the United States Constitution was the first founding document, it wasn't. The Articles of Confederation were tried. And of course, the other failure of the Articles of Confederation was the fact that in order to change the Articles of Confederation, they needed to have 100% of the 13 colonies' approval to make any changes. In fact, they tried to make some changes, and Rhode Island, essentially, at one point, Rhode Island said, yeah, we're not going to do that. And so any amendments, any changes, things like that, it was going to be essentially a pain in the, like, even worse than what it is today with Article 5 in our U.S. Constitution. It was going to be a pain in the butt to get anything changed. And so that's part of the reason, or that's why the Articles of Confederation were tossed. But if you read through the articles and you look at the differences in the Articles of Confederation and the U.S. Constitution, you'll find that some of the values carried over from the Articles of Confederation into the United States Constitution. That is my final Whiskey Musings thought and the end of the Constitution Quarter. There we go. Episode 1 of the Constitution Quarter in the books. Do me a favor. If you like the program, if you like what I'm bringing to the table, and you're not already signed up on Rumble, then get on Rumble and sign up and follow the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Also, do me a favor. Go and hit that Constitutional Quarter, or Constitution Quarter new channel that's on Rumble. Go over there and follow over there, and you'll get notified when I drop the new episodes or the new segments into each one. Also, I am being told, I think I've been aware of this, but if you don't mind, folks, before I end the show, there was a person on Rumble. She was a follower of mine, and we'd like to have a moment of silence for her over on Rumble. Her Rumble handle was AS music or as music. And yeah, so if you will take off your hats and just give a moment of silence for AS music. She passed on. We have no details other than the fact that she's passed. So if you'll bear with, please, just a moment of silence for her. All right. And yes, there is no pet of the week tonight. Nobody sent me anything for pet of the week. But if you'd like to get your pet featured on Pet of the Week, do me a favor, send an email to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans at whiskeymusings.online. And I will get it on for Pet of the Week. Remember, again, Saturday, no show for Saturday. I will see you here next week, next Wednesday, on the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.